Most people eventually ask the wrong question. They ask, what should I do? What skill should I learn? What business should I start? What opportunity should I pursue? But in a world where information is everywhere, those questions become less useful. Because today, you can learn almost anything. You can start almost anything. You can access tools, courses, mentors, software, and knowledge that previous generations could never imagine. The real problem is no longer access. The real problem is direction. Because without direction, every opportunity begins to look equally important. Every new idea feels exciting. Every new path feels possible. And a person can spend years moving from one thing to another without ever building anything substantial. Not because they're lazy, not because they're incapable, but because they never decided what they were actually building. The future is going to reward people who can make that decision. Not perfectly, not permanently, but intentionally. Because the people who know where they are going can organize their lives around that decision. Everyone else becomes vulnerable to distraction, novelty, drift, which leads to a question that many people avoid asking. What are you building? Not this week, not this month, not this quarter, but what are you building with your life? One of the easiest mistakes to make in modern life is confusing movement with progress. A person can stay busy every day. They can answer emails, attend meetings, watch educational content, start projects, research opportunities, make plans, set goals, fill calendars, and still have no real direction. Because activity and trajectory are not the same thing. A car moving at high speed is impressive, but if it is heading in the wrong direction, speed only increases the distance from where it should be. Human beings do the same thing. We often assume that movement itself is progress, but progress requires a destination. Otherwise, activity becomes a substitute for direction. This is why some people wake up 10 years later feeling confused. They were never inactive. They worked hard. They stayed busy. They kept moving. But they never paused long enough to ask where all that effort was actually leading. Builders understand something important. Before effort can be optimized, direction must be chosen. Because direction determines whether effort compounds or disperses. And in the future, the ability to sustain a direction may become more valuable than the ability to stay busy. Many people spend their lives chasing achievements they never consciously selected. They graduate, get promoted, buy something larger, accumulate more, reach another milestone, and then another, and then another. And eventually something strange happens. The achievements arrive, but fulfillment does not. Because achievement and meaning are not automatically connected. An achievement only feels meaningful when it contributes to something larger. Without a larger direction, Achievements become isolated events. A person reaches a goal, celebrates briefly, then immediately searches for the next one. That cycle repeats. It's not because goals are bad. It's because goals alone cannot provide direction. Goals are checkpoints. Direction is the road. And many people spend years collecting checkpoints without ever deciding where the road is supposed to lead. The future is filled with opportunities. That's not the challenge. The challenge is deciding which opportunities deserve your life. Because every opportunity accepted requires another opportunity to be rejected. Direction is ultimately an act of selection. And to have good selection, it requires clarity. Goals are useful, but goals have a weakness. They end. You lose 20 pounds. The goal ends. You launch the business. The goal ends. You finish the degree. You publish the project. All of those are goals, and they end. But direction is different. Direction continues. It survives completed goals. It survives failures. It survives changes in circumstances. Because direction is not tied to a specific milestone. It is tied to a larger trajectory. A person can spend decades pursuing a direction. The individual goals simply help them move forward. This distinction matters because modern people often become trapped in short-term thinking. They become obsessed with immediate objectives, immediate metrics, immediate outcomes, immediate rewards. Builders think differently. They ask the larger question, who am I becoming? Because every habit, every decision, every commitment, and every sacrifice is gradually constructing a future version of yourself. Whether intentionally or unintentionally, the future self is being built either way. The only question is whether you are participating in its design. Most people spend remarkably little time defining the person they intend to become. They plan vacations. They plan their purchases, projects, schedules, events. But rarely do they stop to define their future self. 5 years from now, who are you? What skills have you mastered? What problems can you solve? What responsibilities can you carry? Who depends on you? What have you contributed? What have you built? These questions matter because direction becomes easier when the destination becomes visible. You do not need perfect certainty. You do not need a detailed blueprint, but you do need a target. Otherwise, every new opportunity competes equally for your attention. And when everything appears important, decision-making becomes exhausting. The future belongs to people who can maintain directional clarity despite constant options. Not because they know everything, it's because they know what they are moving toward. That knowledge changes how they spend their time, how they spend their money, how they spend their attention, and ultimately how they spend their lives. One of the greatest benefits of direction is that it simplifies decision making. Without direction, every choice becomes difficult. Every opportunity requires analysis. Every possibility demands consideration. Every distraction becomes tempting. But direction creates filters. A builder does not evaluate every opportunity. They evaluate whether the opportunity supports the destination. If it does, it receives attention. If it does not, it gets rejected. That sounds simple, but it is incredibly powerful. Because life increasingly rewards the ability to say no. There are too many options, too many paths, too many inputs, too many opportunities. Without filters, people become overwhelmed. But with filters, complexity becomes manageable. This is why direction is not restrictive. It is liberating. Direction reduces noise. Direction creates clarity. Direction preserves energy. And direction allows effort to accumulate in a consistent way over time. The future rewards compounding. Compounding requires focus, and focus requires a direction. Here is what you do. Tomorrow, set aside 30 uninterrupted minutes. No phone, no notification, no entertainment, no distraction. Take out a notebook or open a blank document. Then answer a single question. What am I building? Not what you want next month. Not what sounds impressive. Not what other people expect. What are you intentionally building over the next 5 years? Describe the person you want to become, the capabilities you want to develop, the responsibilities you want to carry, the problems you want to solve, the contribution you want to make. Do not worry about perfection. Do not worry about certainty. The goal is not prediction. The goal is direction. Because a rough destination is infinitely more useful than no destination at all. And once direction exists, decisions become easier. Action becomes easier. Consistency becomes easier. The future becomes easier to navigate. Let's be clear. The difference between builders and drifters is not effort. Both groups can work hard. Both groups can stay busy. Both groups can remain active. The difference is that builders build toward something. They understand that every action is either contributing to a future they want or moving them away from it. They recognize that life is cumulative. The future is not created all at once. It is assembled gradually, decision by decision, day by day, year by year. That understanding changes behavior. Because when direction becomes visible, effort becomes meaningful. Sacrifice becomes understandable. Consistency becomes easier. And uncertainty becomes less intimidating. Builders stay. Drifters switch. Because builders know where they are going to. The future will not belong to the people who stay busiest. It will not belong to the people who collect the most information. It will not belong to the people who chase every opportunity they encounter. The future will belong to people who choose a direction and continue moving toward it. Not perfectly, not without mistakes, not without adjustments, but intentionally. Because direction turns effort into progress. Direction turns action into momentum. Direction turns years into something meaningful. If you're wanting to stay relevant in a world filled with infinite options and endless distractions, stop asking, "What should I do?" Start asking, "What am I building?" And if you want the answer to the questions that will shape almost every important decision that follows, subscribe. This is D.B. Lewis. I will see you in the next one.